The more I think about the movie Obsession, the more I think I understand why it's so divisive. This movie is a funhouse mirror. It takes something deeply human, loneliness, desire, the need to be loved, and twists it until we feel uncomfortable. And it's also a Rorschach test. People walk away from this movie seeing something completely different, and I find that fascinating. In this video, I'll be tackling some of the bigger questions surrounding the film. Is this movie a character study about narcissism? Or if not, what is this movie really trying to say? I'll also be diving into the psychology of all four main characters, figuring out where obsession sits in modern movie culture, and exploring the question, did Nikki have genuine feelings for Bear? Obviously, this video contains full spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, I'd recommend watching it first. Obsession is the story of a guy called Bear, who spends 7 years harboring deep, unrequited feelings for a girl called Nikki. He then finds a cheap novelty toy called the One-Wish Willow, and without believing it will work, wishes that Nikki would love him more than anyone else in the world. The wish works, and that's when shit gets fucking crazy. Beyond its premise, Obsession explores themes of loneliness and coercion, limerence and consent, and it's also darkly funny. I also just want to say this up front, the movie isn't asking us to excuse Bear's actions. So the interesting question isn't whether he's wrong, it's how he reveals himself, and what that says about his character. So let's start there, because I think there's a lot more to this character than people realize. Because it's easy to look at Bear and slap a label on him. It's easy to say he's an incel, or a fake nice guy, or a narcissist. And while I don't think those labels are meaningless, they're also not a very nuanced reading of the character either. And speaking more broadly, there's a lot of association that happens with a movie like this. We look at characters like Bear and we immediately build a wall between us and them. But buried underneath Bear's worst qualities is something painfully ordinary. It's the desire to be loved. And the truth is, there are elements of Bear in all of us. And that's what's clever about this movie. And we've all been like the Wish version of Nikki too. This version of Nikki is the personification of our fear of abandonment, dialed up to 11. And that's what the movie's trying to exploit. It's holding an ugly funhouse mirror to your face and asking, how far would you go to escape loneliness? And that's what I love about this movie, the realistic character motivations. Because nobody in Obsession is purely good or bad. So let's take a closer look at Bear's life and the people he has around him. First, let's look at Ian. Ian represents how male loneliness can manifest. He seems like Bear's closest friend, but their friendship is completely hollow. Ian is sleeping with Nikki behind Bear's back and purposefully sabotaging every attempt Bear makes to be with her. In the opening scene, Ian tells Bear, all you have is time, which might seem like a normal line on first viewing, until you realize that time is literally the most finite commodity we have. And Ian is completely full of shit. And then there's Nikki. Nikki is someone Bear's completely built up in his head. He's put her on a pedestal, but the more we see them together, the less it feels like he actually knows her. And what I also find interesting is that Curry Barker actually shot their car ride scene from two different perspectives. One where she genuinely likes him, and one where she doesn't. He then blended these perspectives together in the edit to confuse the audience, just like the interrogation scene in American Psycho. The end result being a pastiche of someone we can't truly read. It's the exact same feeling we get when we're not sure if someone likes us or is even honest with us. The only person who seems to treat Bear with genuine care is Sarah, and that's what makes her such a tragic figure. She's the only person Bear seems genuinely comfortable around. He tells Sarah about his dead cat without hesitation. They joke together. There's no pedestal or performance or fantasy. And beyond the friend group, Bear has no ambition. There's no mention of family outside of his dead grandmother. Oh, and his cat just died. This is the perfect environment for Obsession to grow. And that's what this movie wants you to sit with. I've seen a lot of people describe Bear as having Narcissistic Personality Disorder, but I don't think that's an accurate reading. I'm no mental health professional, but in my opinion, Bear only really seems to check 3 out of 9 of these boxes for narcissism. For a clinical diagnosis, you need to score at least 5. Bear is definitely entitled, exploitative, and lacking in empathy, and these traits are extreme, but I don't really see the others in him. Do you? The other distinction is that narcissistic personality disorder is who someone consistently is, not just how they behave in heightened situations. So I don't think this movie is meant to be read as a portrayal of narcissism. It's something else entirely, which I'll get to later. But just because Bear might not have clinical narcissistic personality disorder doesn't mean he's a good guy either. He's not. So when does Bear change? When can we officially call Bear the bad guy? Well, I'd say it's the moment he becomes self-aware of what he's done. From that point on, every decision he makes is a conscious one. And nothing solidifies Bear's self-awareness more than the phone call scene with the One Wish Willow sales rep, voiced by Curry Barker. It's during this scene that we learn two important things. One, we learn that from this moment on, Bear is definitely self-aware of his own actions. He knows the wishes are real. Before this, we only get glimpses of Bear's awareness, but in this scene, the sales rep confirms it. The rep directly tells him the wishes are real, in which Bear responds, "No, I know the..." He then pauses, changes gears, and asks, "Is her love real?" He was about to say he knows the wishes are real, but then asks an even bigger question, which reveals the second important thing, his motivation. He wants to know that Nikki's love is real, which is all he cares about in the final act of the movie. His motivation becomes overriding Nikki's autonomy to preserve their relationship, while convincing himself her love is real. And he continues this facade, even after hearing the real Nikki's screams from purgatory. If there's one thing I love, it's movies that casually drop massive pieces of lore that go over your head on first viewing. And this is a big one. So yeah, not a great guy, this Bear fella. But there's one more layer to him, and this is important too. At no point of the movie does Bear try to kill Nikki. Even after she violently murders Sarah, his first instinct is to kill himself. And this does muddy the waters in how we think of him, because we can't just write him off as a cartoonish villain. Because he isn't a cartoonish villain. He's more of a cartoonish coward. And this is when we get to his final character moment. After Bear swallows the pills, he immediately tries to vomit them back up. And this is Bear's greatest sin in a nutshell. It's cowardice, not malice or even manipulation, but cowardice. It's his cardinal sin all throughout the film. Nikki lies about her dad having cancer, and Bear's too afraid to say anything. She makes him eat his own cat, and he barely confronts her. She tapes his front door shut, and he politely opens it and carries on. Bear's cowardliness is what turns this movie into a deranged, I think you should leave sketch. So what is Obsession actually about? Well, primarily, it's a movie about consent, but it's also a character study about the dangers of inaction. But it's more than that. It's a dark comedy, a jet black dark comedy about attachment styles. And it's a funhouse mirror designed to make you cringe, laugh, and recoil. But it's also designed to make you ask questions about yourself. I'd put it in the same category as movies like The Drama, or The Truman Show, or Get Out, or Begonia. This is heightened realism. Movies that take ordinary human experiences and exaggerate them into surreal situations as a way of revealing ugly or uncomfortable truths about humanity. And there's one more thing. The main question you've all been wondering. Did Nikki actually like Bear? Would she actually have dated him if he'd had the courage to ask her out? Well, a lot of people are pointing to the Hansel and Gretel incest poem as proof that Nikki only ever saw Bear as the little brother, but I think it's more complicated than that. I think Bear was deep in the friend zone, but not exactly mayor of the zone. I think on some level, Nikki did like Bear. She just needed him to step up and take direction of his life, and be honest with her about how he actually felt. The car ride scene is our biggest indicator of that, especially the moment when she says if he likes her, now's the time to tell her. And there's another clue in the movie that I haven't seen anyone else bring up. The Wish version of Nikki blatantly tells Bear that her feelings for him started around Christmas, which of course could be a lie, especially if she lied about her dad's cancer. But unlike that lie, this detail doesn't actually serve the wish. The cancer lie keeps Bear invested, allowing him to ignore Nikki's erratic behavior. but the details of her feelings starting around Christmas doesn't seem to benefit the wish at all, which makes me think it was real. What do you think? So there you have it. Obsession by Calvin Klein. Bear should have bought some, sprayed it on, and asked Nikki out. But instead, he chose to live in Curry Barker's nightmare world of passive ambiguity until it destroyed him. Alright, so before I disappear, if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. I write my own scripts, do my own drawings, and this is also, sadly, my own real voice. So yeah, if you enjoy handmade video essays with a unique perspective, please follow along for more. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.